Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. We're joined today by Savannah. She is going to chat with us about deaf and blind dogs. So thank you for joining us, Savannah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So we both have experience owning dogs that are either deaf or blind or both, dogs that have gone deaf, dogs that have gone blind, and it comes with some challenges that people might not understand or know how to handle. So do you want to talk a little bit about your babies and some of the stuff you've experienced with changes? And then we'll kind of get in, we'll talk about blind dogs, and then we'll talk about deaf dogs and kind of some of the criteria under that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've had just about anything that you can think of with them. So mine, I've never had them when they were deaf or blind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been a development later on in their stages of life. Of course, cataracts, it's just how it usually starts with them being blind. Deaf just goes over time, their hearing just goes. And it's a big change. So obviously it's different how you treat a dog that can see and can hear versus a dog that can't, that heavily relies on you. Mm-hmm. And you're responsible for, how they perceive things, how they hear. You become their ears. So if you take them on walks, they sometimes can't even hear the cars coming down the road anymore to know to stay out of the road. So you have to be due diligent, don't have your headphones in as often, or have one earbud in as you're walking them so you can pay attention to what's around them. Blind, same thing. It's getting your house together and stuff in a certain particular way, which we'll go over here in a bit. But it's a challenge, and it's not as easy as some people think. And I see these influencers that sometimes go into the shelters and like, I want to get the oldest dog here. I want to do this, which is great. You're helping out getting a dog out of a situation that it shouldn't be in. But I don't think some people understand how much responsibility is involved with that and how different it is. It's not like just getting a dog that doesn't have these disabilities. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have one dog who he went deaf pretty quickly and almost with no signs. We had no idea until we started to call for him, and he wouldn't even turn around, or come in the house and he wouldn't even know we were home. Mm-hmm. And it took us a little bit of a while to figure out that he was indeed deaf. And then it happened very quickly, I think quicker than most dogs. And I don't really know why. And then one of our other dogs, she's slowly going blind and slowly going deaf, mm-hmm. which is interesting. She actually has smaller cataracts than our other dog, and yet she's the one losing her vision. So it's been a learning process for us as well.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start with blind dogs. I know you have a dog that is completely blind, right?
It's essentially, she's about 90%. So she'll see shadows and lights, but that's about it. She can't see details or anything anymore. Silo, we've had her a very, very long time, since 2006, I believe. Mm-hmm. And her birthday's actually next week, so she'll be turning 18, if I did that math right. It's been a minute.
Right.
So yeah, she's a sight hound. She's an Italian greyhound. So she had her sight. She had very good sight when she was younger. She could see things much further than what I could. Mm-hmm. And past couple of years, probably past 5 or 6 years, she started to develop cloudiness and cataracts in her eyes. And we started to notice that vision, she was bumping into something sometimes, so she didn't see it right away. So then she would kind of stop and move. But now her vision's almost completely gone. So she's very heavily reliant on the mapping of our house, how it's laid out, where she knows where her water dish is. So, and we've also had to change a lot of our routine with that too, because sometimes she gets confused and lost where is in the house, and if we're not home to help guide her where her water dish is. So sometimes we have different water dishes set up throughout the house, so she'll find something. Same with food. She always has access to food now. That was not a thing, but sometimes she doesn't get to her food dish, so we have to make sure she's eating properly. But it's a big change when they can fully see to when they can no longer see.
Right.
I guess one of the bigger changes for that is, I know we're going to touch on it here in a bit, but I can't emphasize enough about house layout and keeping your furniture where it's at.
Right.
Because even when I just clean the house a little bit, just to move like the coffee table out of the way to vacuum the rug, she'll bump into it because it's not supposed to be there in the middle of the walkway and stuff. So that's something to consider too, is if somebody decides, I want to help a dog, I want to get one that's disabled, I want to help this blind dog. You can't just want to just change your furniture or change the layout of your house. This is what you may do with a dog that can see easy, because it's going to stress the dog out. It's going to freak them out of where this is now here. They're going to lose that confidence. And so then they're going to start walking super slow around the house and even start pacing in circles, which can cause them super stress. So.
Yeah, location of furniture is interesting. So we want to move our furniture in our bedroom, but we cannot, because we have 2 seniors who, if it's dark, they can't see at all.
Right.
And so actually a few things that we've done is install motion sensor lights. So if they get up, the lights come on, because it does help them see a little bit more. Kind of like you said with the shadows, they can kind of see like, okay, here's the edge of the bed, here's this. With that, we've got a few water bowls in our room at night, so they can get to those if they need to, and they're within the range of that light. And then a couple of like orthopedic beds. So if they do get down and for some reason can't find the stairs to get back onto the bed, or they just want to lay somewhere different, we got a few beds to put in our bedroom too. So, TikTok glamorizes it, and influencers. It's not as aesthetically pleasing as you would think.
No. Because again, like you said, you're accommodating for them. You're responsible for their well-being, and they rely on you because you are their eyes now. So, and they've been a part of your life either for 5 minutes or for 500 years. So you're responsible for them, making sure that they're comfortable. So Silo has her own room, which is the guest bathroom. So at night, because she used to be crate trained, but with arthritis and her getting older, we got rid of the crate a long time ago. So she has the guest bathroom, and we put pedal pads down because as she gets older, she just can't hold it throughout the night anymore.
Right.
And we put a couple of beds in there because sometimes it's not a huge bathroom, but it's big. It's a full bath. So sometimes she gets a little confused on where things are. So there's a couple of beds in there. Her water's in there too. And we leave the door open, but we put a baby gate up so she can kind of see if we turn on the lights and stuff. Because again, she can see the lights and shadows. But yeah, you just can't. Like, I want a new couch, but if I get a new couch, it may be a different footprint, and she's going to get confused, and it's going to stress her out. Or a new coffee table. And so really, if you have a animal that's used to that, and they have that blindness going on, then you really don't want to move anything, because that's just not fair to them. So,
right. Do you guys have any baby proofing, or I guess we can call it doggy proofing? Have you guys done anything with that?
So yes and no. So yes, especially if they were much younger, I would have done way more for baby proofing. Silo in her old age, she doesn't move around a whole lot in the house. She mostly sleeps, so she lays down. But like I had pool noodles, so if I wanted to wrap them around the corners of the coffee table, because it kind of has some sharp points, and she's right at eye level with the points too, and so she's not going to see them. So if I move it out of place, she's going to bump into it. She could really hurt herself.
Right.
So do have pool noodles that I could put on the edges there if I need to. Chairs, like our bar stools and stuff, if we have company over, I'll bring those out, but she gets put away typically. But then normally we have them off to the side, so she can't, because they're metal poles, and she runs into them. She could, again, hurt herself. So kind of have those sighted. She used to get into trash cans a lot. She was really bad. It was a lot of training for that one. Now she doesn't, but we had to kind of baby proof the trash can, get one with a lid that you had to kind of, step on or unlock or something to get in there that was heavy metal, no plastic ones. Toilet bowls, she never messed with toilet bowls or anything like that, but I could easily see that if they think it's a water dish, making sure, and if you have cleaners in there, if you just cleaned it, then you want to make sure they're not getting in there. So,
Yeah, we always keep the toilet seat down just in case they were to jump or try to explore it. We've probably got 5 or 6 gates put up in our house. The trash can, so every trash can is behind a gate where they can't get to it.
Yeah.
Because I know that's a big issue. Their nose is a big driver. And so even if they're trained, they're going to deviate from any kind of training. Right. I think this is food. And it's not malicious on their part. It's just them being a dog.
Right. They just, especially Silo, is very, very food motivated. We call her Grub, because she was always just when she has to see the food. So she was very, very heavily food motivated. Our house layout's very open where our trash cans are, so it's not as easy for us. So that's why we had to go with a very heavy metal trash can. And Silo being small, and our dogs are small, they couldn't easily lift that up. But a bigger dog, I could easily see that you need to have like the clips and stuff, making sure that it's staying.
Yeah.
And we do have baby gates sometimes. So when I'm cleaning in a certain area and I don't want her to go into, I put up the mobile baby gate that we have. So,
and we've mentioned kind of cleaning a few times, and this is so important because number one, what you're using,
right?
And number two, the frequency with which you were cleaning. And most people probably don't know about that. So let's talk about cleaners. And I know for you, you're doing quite a bit of laundry, so detergent. I know you're cleaning messes with sprays. So talk about sprays. Yep. And we'll talk about a few more things, but let's talk about like detergents and sprays first.
So for, like I was saying, Silo has a difficult time holding it throughout the night now. So pretty much every morning there's an accident. So even like this morning when I was leaving, I let Chris know, hey, I got to go, but Silo had an accident. Can you get that? So he was going to get that taken care of. So her blankets, pretty much almost on the daily, we have to clean her bedding, she has sweaters, her heating pad covers and stuff. So we have to get those washed pretty much on the daily. And so we have several of them in case we need to swap certain ones out. So she has someplace to lay while the other ones are in the wash. I try to use pretty much non-scented, nothing scented, because that's just overwhelming, especially when a dog loses some sort of sense. Their other senses become way more heightened. And so her smeller is what we call it, her sniffer. Yeah. Her sniffer pretty much is very intense now. So we don't want to overwhelm them with fragrances or anything. So unscented, try to do like the free and clear stuff, no dyes if we can avoid it. Sometimes the baby detergents are really good to have on hand if need be, but I try to do like just the free, clear, no dyes, no fragrances, just basic, just get this clean and sanitized. And
yeah, we use everything Blue Land. So all their products are non-toxic. So detergents, floor cleaner, window cleaner, bathroom cleaner, dish cleaner, you name it, they probably have a cleaner for it. Yep. And that's what we switched to. So their detergent is unscented. And so with us, we're not doing laundry quite as much. We do have waterproof blankets we put over our bed. So if our seniors have an accident, they can't get down or they're confused where they're at, and they go on those. Number one, it's nice it's waterproof because it protects the rest of the bed. And number two, it's easy to just throw in the washer.
Right.
And on that same line with different cleaners and stuff, I think, man, we have been brainwashed to think like, I want to clean with Fabuloso. I want something that has that scent. And unfortunately, it's not good for us.
No, it's not.
It's definitely not good for dogs either. So I don't think people maybe quite grasp that either, especially with senior dogs, blind dogs, deaf dogs. So what do you guys like to clean with?
So, who didn't use Fabuloso and stuff in those cleaners? Everybody did. But of course, as you start diving into it and really thinking about it, what helped me a lot too is my eczema. As you know, I have really bad eczema on my hands. So I have to use particular cleaners anyway now because a lot of those cleaners really screwed with my hands.
Right.
So Blue Land, I actually use Blue Land for certain things, especially the spray cleaners. And when she has a little accident around the house, I get that out, spray and wipe it up and get that taken care of. Every once in a while, though, I still have to use bleach in certain aspects, and I hate using bleach. And so I'm very particular about when I use it. Like I said, she's got her room, and when she's not feeling well, she's had really bad accidents throughout the night and stuff and just kind of sick, I need to get in there, really, really deep clean it. So then I, of course, gate it off. She can't get in there. Pretty much it's off limits the entire day. I clean it in the morning with the bleach and then with boiling hot water, just straight water, I just wipe it down about 4 or 5 times. Like let it dry, wipe it down again, wipe it, then dry, wipe it down again, so on and so forth. It's a whole process to deep clean her bathroom. Trying to move away from bleach, but that's the only one I'm really confident with, that it's cleaning like all the bacteria, especially with what's going on with this, I call it doggy COVID, but this doggy COVID that's going around.
Right.
Really making sure, but I'm trying to find a good alternative product. And I have found another one that a lot of vets and grooming offices use. I forget that I think it's called Odor Off, but it's a good cleaner to get a bunch of odor out of it. But then same thing, I'm still wiping down with boiling water afterwards.
Right.
So.
We stopped using bleach and we use white vinegar and baking soda.
I've tried a few of it. I've tried it a few times, and I'm still transitioning to a little bit, trying to, because I know it cleans, but I'm just not confident with it. That's the big thing, is making sure, because especially at her old age, her immune system's very compromised, and I don't want to risk anything. So she's pretty much in isolation at home for the most part.
Right.
She rarely leaves the house unless we need to take her somewhere. So I know bleach isn't the best, and I don't recommend bleach really at all. I know I use it sometimes, but I don't. If you get a dog who has just in dog in general, and really you shouldn't probably be using bleach either. But Silo also, when she eats, she drops food on the floor, and so she's sniffing around. She tries to pick it up off the floor. So that's another key thing, is making sure if you're using like Fabuloso, and you've recently used it and you haven't wiped it down afterwards with the boiling water or anything, trying to get most up, then they're licking up that Fabuloso, and they're pretty much eating it. So
I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, people were using the Swiffer Wet Jet, and they were doing it by their dogs' bowls, and then their dogs would eat and lick the floor. And I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but a number of dogs died over it. And they were like, oh, I didn't realize my dog was licking up that cleaner. And so, you know, you might not be thinking about it, but it is inevitable. It will happen. And so, like, if I use any kind of Swiffer, I actually won't use any cleaner with it. I'll just use like it's not a Swiffer, it's a Shark, like, steamer. And I'll steam to kind of clean it and maybe go over it with a few more things. But ultimately, using that hot water and just making sure, like, there's nothing they can lick off more.
Right. Yeah, because that's the key thing too, is this, because even your cleaners, when it says like it's an all multi-purpose and you're cleaning your countertops with most of them say do not use direct contact with food, or it says wipe down again with water, essentially, or vinegar, basically. So and I do remember something, I think also something with Fabuloso, if I'm not mistaken. So again, I don't know a whole lot into it. I didn't look into it, but yeah, the cleaners need to be very particular in how often, and be very conscious about the areas of where they're going, especially if, like Silo, she just drops and just randomly sniffs the floor.
Right.
She's sniffing that for heavily fragrant stuff. So,
and fragrant. That's next top of mind. If you have a dog, you probably want your house to smell good. Your house might smell like dog, but a lot of the candles, the wallflowers, the plugins we use, they're toxic to us. They're toxic to pets. And no one's perfect. No one's going to be 100% non-tox. You don't have to be.
Right.
I think you can strive to always get better for yourself and for your pets. And so, as far as scents for us, so we used to be Bath and Body Works lovers. And I'm talking like 7, 8 candles, 10 wallflowers. Like, this whole house smelled like a Bath and Body Works.
Oh, good.
And
or Lush. Yeah.
Or Lush. It was too much. The more I researched it, even I was getting headaches. The dogs might feel kind of nauseous at times, or like kind of show some different symptoms. And
looking at my hair, sorry.
But a lot of that scented stuff, unfortunately, is not good. And there are some options, non-tox or low-tox candles. We actually buy from someone locally in Jacksonville, Louie Bean. She does like low-tox candles. Tried to move away from Bath and Body Works. I know sometimes TJ Maxx will have some like cheaper, lower tox options. Amazon has quite a few, but that's been a big adjustment for us to move away from all the heavily scented things. And I'm sure you guys have made a similar change.
Yeah, it's not even just, I mean, of course we did for Silo, because again, her being blind, they get used to certain scents and stuff. And like I said, their sense of smell increases dramatically with that. So if we had a heavily scented candle, it could cut. I mean, we don't know if it's causing her headaches. It's not, of course, it's not good for her. That fragrance and that wax goes somewhere when it burns. So it goes up into the air. So then you're breathing that in, and she's breathing that in, and it can become extremely overwhelming. And sometimes we noticed, or I noticed anyway, that sometimes eyes would water with them because maybe it's too fragrant. Because it's just, you think it's intense for us, it's more intense for them. It's like 10,000 times fold. So we essentially got we don't shop at Bath and Body Works anymore. I do miss it. I do love it. They had great scents, but it's not fair to them. But also, I really can't use it anymore because my eczema, I can't use any fragrance hands. So the transition not only had to occur for her, but it had to occur for me as well. So even my shampoos and stuff, fragrance free, hand soaps. So, but I do know like Trader Joe's sometimes has some good, they have some good products there too. But yeah, or if you want to stick with candles that are fragrance, I wouldn't, like you said, light them all at once or have multiple wallflowers going, because that's just overwhelming and overstimulating. Or keep a scent in one particular room. Like if you have like an apple candle in the living room, when they walk in there, they know that it's apple. You don't even have to light it. If you just keep the lid off of it to let them smell it, they know, okay, this is the living room. I know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Here's my dish. And so sometimes that helps, but the wallflowers, the plugins, again, that's just even perfumes that you would put on too. You have to be very careful about timing. You put it on, let it sit for a little bit if you are even going to do that. And then you can handle your dog. I wouldn't say just spray it on you and then just immediately start handling your dogs. It's unfair to them.
Yeah, and I've seen some people on social media like spraying their dogs down with human body sprays. Absolutely not. There's just no reason for it.
No.
At all.
No. You don't, it's a different chemical makeup. You don't know what that's going to do first off to their fur. You don't know if that's going to cause a chemical burn to them. You don't know how sensitive it is and overwhelming. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I would not be happy if I saw that.
I just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
No good for you. So let's talk a little bit about having a deaf dog. And I think you and I would agree communication is the biggest hurdle, issue, learning curve. Like for us with the dog that went deaf, I can't yell for him anymore. I can't say, come inside. I can't say dinner's ready. And so we have been trying to rely more on hand gestures. And I wish that we had started that sooner. So that's kind of one thing. And then I was talking to a trainer and she was talking about training dogs based on colored flashlights. Like taking a particular one and flashing it out means like, okay, time to go outside. And then flashing a different one coming back in. And that's assuming they're deaf and not blind, of course.
Right. You can see. Yeah.
So that's something that, again, kind of wish I would have started. Again, you don't know. You don't know
until you get into it.
Yeah. So I know for us, communication has been big, and people have also recommended, hitting something for a vibration or just trying to get something to move or something to kind of signal them. We haven't been that successful with it. And that might be consistency on our part. If I'm hitting a wall to try to get your attention on one thing, but then I'm hitting a pan to get your attention on something else, you might be a little bit confused. You might not know where it's coming from. Right. So I think an issue with us is consistency. But what have you guys kind of seen with communication with the deaf dog?
It's funny that you mentioned the flashlights. Well, we did do flashlights with Jericho. So Jericho was a min pin. He unfortunately passed away back in October, but he was going blind, but he was essentially pretty much deaf by a year ago. He could hear very, very, like if you're clapping or banging pans together. So that's what he could hear. That's it. We still use flashlights actually with Silo a little bit because she can see those lights and shadows at night. So for Jericho, we had the flashlight, same thing at night for him to say, hey, when he's out in the yard and stuff, so we let him out. Of course, we'd be there watching him. And he's just walking around sniffing. We would flash the flashlight and say, hey, it's time to come in. And so he would come towards light and then he would come inside. So we actually did the flashlight training and and it just kind of happened that way.
Right.
And it was very successful with them out in the yard at night. During the day, it's a little rougher, obviously, because it's very bright, sunny Florida. So hard to use it during the day, but it's a lot of recall. So, and most people think recall, it's you're saying their name, the dog returns. Well, they can't hear. So it's having the dog make sure they're continuing to look at you. Like not every like this all the time,
right?
But every few seconds or so, every 10, 15 seconds, they're looking back, say, okay, there's mom. Mom isn't saying come here or anything. So that training, it's challenging, but typically food motivated is like keep looking at me as you're walking the dog, having your treat bag, just constantly, pay attention to me. And a lot of people with reactive dogs do the same thing. It's like, ignore the dog that's passing, pay attention to me.
Right.
So it's very similar training as what you would do with a reactive dog.
Right.
And the hand gestures. So we did a little bit of, I did a little bit anyway with sign language a little bit with Jericho. And I know some people, I've seen the same thing on TikTok and stuff, like want to go for a walk. And so when the dog sees that, then they know, oh, we're going for a walk.
Right.
Outside. Right. It's like, come here, or yes, no, don't do that, or no, and stuff. So it's a lot of being consistent. That is the key thing. Because if you lapse in it, then the dog can get confused, or it's not on a consistent basis. Because like you said, you're hammering or you're slamming on the wall to get their attention for the vibration, but what if you're hanging up a picture?
Right.
So same thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
so the vibration thing, I could see it working, but I could see it being confusing as well.
Right.
So
Yeah. Any other tips for anyone with a deaf or a blind dog? Anything we haven't touched on?
Well, I think what we were also talking about earlier before we started was, when trying to wake up a deaf dog.
Yes.
So waking up a deaf dog, it can be a challenge because, they're sleeping. They're heavy sleepers sometimes because they can't hear anything. So they don't know what's going on around them. So they're in their deep sleep and you're trying to wake them up. So you got to go, or you got to let them outside. It's that time, or it's dinner time. If you just go up to them and just pat them, it can spook them and stresses them out, causes them anxiety and stuff. And they may not sleep well because they're constantly afraid of, I'm going to get woken up. What was that? So,
Right.
So what I sometimes did with Jericho was when he was in his heavy sleep, I would start to just blow, just go and just kind of blow on him to say, hey, here's wind, kind of get his attention a little bit as he's starting to come out of that sleep mode. And then slowly, gently, pet him, try to wake him up. And then I would, pick him up and he would be awake and it wouldn't scare him. So
Yeah.
that's what worked for me. I know some people, same thing I've seen on TikTok too. People do the same thing where they try to blow on their dog slowly. And that seems to work very effectively from what I've seen. So
yeah, if we have time and one of our dogs is laying on the floor, we'll just kind of walk back and forth. So they kind of feel maybe that we're near them. They start to smell us. They sense us being around. And I'll kind of just pace around them for a second. And after they become a little bit more alert, just start petting them. That works if they're sleeping on the floor. And if I have time. Not everyone's going to have time to sit there and pace for 5 minutes. But that has been a little bit more effective for us than, of course, like scaring them away.
Right. Another thing that I sometimes did, kind of as a joke sometimes with Jericho, when he's in deep sleep, is I would get a treat and put it in front of his nose and let it sit there for a few seconds. And of course, he's sleeping, but then he wakes up. It's like, oh, there's a treat. And then he eats it. Yeah. So that's another way, too, that's relatively quick as well. And they get a little treat for waking up. And it's like, oh, good morning. So it doesn't like a little breakfast in bed. So
exactly. Well, thank you, Savannah, for helping educate us on deaf and blind dogs. I think it's always important to kind of point those out because, like you said, we want to do better and we've got some influencers trying to do better, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. It can be a little harder, but it can certainly be rewarding.
It absolutely can be rewarding. And yeah, I do appreciate some of the influencers who are trying, and at least they're bringing attention to their senior dogs that been in shelters for a very, very long time, who may get overlooked quite a bit just because of their disability. And so they are taking them out. And I do appreciate that. I just hope that they also take into consideration a lot of kind of what we touched on. Cleaners, don't just move your furniture around. And if you decide to move, if you live in an apartment, a quick touch on things. If they're deaf, their bark levels change. So if you live in an apartment when they were younger and they may have a smaller bark or not really bark at all, but as they get older and they're deaf, then their bark may increase. And so that may cause noise complaints. So there's a lot to consider when getting, but I hope that it all works out for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.